just run through the schedule real quick. July, we do not have an Omega 1. This is one of the months that we are not doing an Omega 1. We were jostling around the schedule. Plus, I was anticipating doing an Omega 8, so naturally that did not work. So, naturally that did not work. It has not unfolded yet. So in July, the only thing that we do have is an Omega 2, which is the 18th to the 21st, and that is full, and there is a waiting list. So if you know anybody who would like to be on that, or wants to be on the next one, I think the next one is in October. July 1st and the 15th, there are Monday night workshops. I have not decided the topics yet, so read the newsletter. The impact training will be July 13th. I am contemplating going back to doing, for those of you who did do communication impact training that I did, I've got a whole new set of different activities and toys. So I might do something along the same lines, but not as with the wood or anything. Like you didn't have to build anything. How many people were in the communication workshops that I did, the impact trainings? Oh, good, there's only 3, so if I repeated some of them, you'll have an advantage. The next Omega 1 is August 1st through the 4th. And of course, we have an Omega 4, August 16th to the 25th, and you cannot get into that until you've completed an Omega 2. You guys are up for the 4, right? Is that?
I know.
You're up for the 4, okay. Did you do it, Kurt? The 4, no, just the 2. All right. So, I think that's all I have on 4 announcements. Is there anything that anybody else would like to say, check in, before I move forward?
Still have any teen Omegas?
No teen Omegas yet, Doyle. We're working on it. How's that? Next. That was an easy one. All right. How many people know what tonight's topic is? Oh, all right. It's about pay attention to me. This was a funny event, so if you got the newsletter or the little reminder, on our honeymoon we were up in Maui and we were ziplining. And I've done zip lines before, so it wasn't a big deal. Well, it was a big deal. It was still neat. I've never done it in trees where you had to climb up to the top of, so you took a ladder in the tree and then they had a rope ladder in the tree. So we climbed up. It was really quite amazing. And little tiny wooden platforms for 9 people plus 2 staff members to stand on. So there was a little bit of nervousness. I made sure I didn't look down. It was helpful because there was a 9-year-old kid there and he was Mr. I'm going to do Mr. Adventure, you know, his hero thing. So that was kind of fun to have this kid just be like, I'm going to do it. He was actually kind of too light for the course, so the staff had to pull him a couple times because he didn't make it all the way down to the end. He got stopped halfway through. I didn't have that problem. Anyway, so on the very last one, I'm all the way up on the top, and this is like the steepest. It's almost, I want to say it was like a 45-degree angle. It was pretty deep. It was a pretty steep angle. And you knew you were going to go fast because they said it was going to be fast. And the line was tight. How many people have ever done a zip line before? So usually there's a swag in the cable. There was no swag in this one. It was a solid straight line. And the zip lines that I've done before, most of them have a brake, where you have a brake on the harness that you're holding or a brake that's up on the cable. This one didn't have a brake. They gave you a glove with an extra pad on the glove. That was your brake. And so the instructions were, as you're wanting to slow down, you put your hand up on the cable and it would slow you down. Don't grab it. Obviously, you're going to yank your arm out of its socket. You just use it for traction. That's really what it is. And you really can slow yourself down. It doesn't look like it's an effective brake, but it really is. So on this one, so Marc goes down first because he's tall and she needed a guy tall enough to grab the cable and pull it down. So at first I kind of had a little suspicion. Why are they having 2 staff members who can't actually do the very last zip line? What if Marc wasn't with us? What we'd have done is hang off the cable, and because what he had to do is grab the cable and bring it down so she can unhook the people off of the cable. So had he not been there, I really was curious to see what would have done. But anyway, so Marc went down first, and then she hooks me up. So the woman knew that I'd done this before because it was a 7-line zip, and the first 2, everyone had to hang on. And the last one, you didn't. You could do whatever you wanted. So I'm like hanging upside down, spinning around and everything. So the last one, she's like, well, do you really want to go fast? And I said, sure. So she twisted my harness and hooked it up to the cable. Then she had me lay flat like a torpedo is what it was called. And then she took my legs and swung them as hard as she could. So I was like propelling all the way down. Yeah, I forgot about my, what is this? Yeah, no, it's equilibrium. I have really bad equilibrium because I'm deaf in this ear, so I forgot about that. So for a moment, the world kind of went like that, and then she had said there was a sign halfway down, and she said, once you pass that sign, tuck up like a cannonball, and you will shoot as fast as you can. So I did. I tucked down, and man, I went flying. I just remember seeing the leaves go. I was like, wow, I'm really going fast here. So when I got down, I was so excited, and Marc pulls the cable down. I'm like, did you see me? Did you see me? And he's like chatting with her, and I'm waiting for him to turn around and go, did you see me? Did you see me? And he's still chatting with her, and I'm like, hello, wife, turn around. And he's still chatting with her, and then the next person's coming, and I'm like, okay, I'll just wait. So the person comes down and unhooks, and finally I walk up to him and I tug his shirt, and I said, did you see me go down? He goes, oh no, honey, I'm sorry, she was talking to me. Yeah. First argument in America. I wasn't upset, but I did recognize immediately my excitement was just completely deflated. You missed it? You missed it? I immediately wanted to go back up and do it again. And I thought, no, that really wouldn't be the point. So that's where I got the idea for this Monday night workshop, because that was the first time I actually recognized I desired someone to pay attention to me. And I was upset that you didn't. So then I started thinking about events in my life when I hadn't gotten attention. And of course, you know, the life that I grew up with, in an abusive situation, you're the one who doesn't want the attention. So you're happy when you don't get the attention. But I was thinking more along the lines of whenever I've made some accomplishment or some great task that I've done or great risks that I've done, how you just want to share that. And what is that? Why do we have to share it? And does it make it any less just because I don't tell somebody what I did? Hello, welcome. So, sorry, that was a goofy hello. We just joined Cinderella. So, as I was thinking about this, I started thinking about the idea of paying attention to me. And George used to tell a story, those of you who remember this, George would tell a story of how his children would ask him to come over and babysit the grandchildren and watch them in the pool. And George first started walking over, bringing his books. He figured he'd get to do some work while he's watching the kids in the pool. Has anybody ever tried to watch grandchildren in the pool? Grandpa, look at me! Grandpa, look at me! Grandpa, look at me! An hour, just straight. Look at me, look at me, look at me, look at me, look at me. I've done this, I've had this experience. I don't bring books with me. So when I watch the kids, we sit and I watch the kids. Because you're not going to get any work done. So he thought that was really funny how he had this preconceived notion, oh, they're going to be busy doing their thing and I'll just go ahead and sit and do my work. It never occurred to him that they would want his attention. But obviously they desired the attention. And how distracted and disruptive it was, because he really wanted to do his work. And now he's having to, and even if it's the same thing, like a handstand, or a handstand, or a handstand, over and over and over. You just sit there, and, you know, those of you who have had kids and grandchildren, you understand this. This is what they do. There's such a short time in their life where they want your attention. It's like you sacrifice it, because you know they're going to soon be off and out of the house and not paying attention to you anymore. They'll be calling, why are you coming over? I doubt that will happen to me, but no, I'm kidding too. Sorry, guys. So, when I thought of this, I thought of those of you who have been around for a while. In March of 2003, what was this? The Evolution of Light. For those of you who remember this, I don't have a date on this. George did this Monday night workshop called The Evolution of Light. So this was really fantastic. It is by far one of my favorite workshops. On the backside, he talked about how light comes in and then light goes out. And it comes to us and it's our job to send it back and spread the light, spread the light. But on the backside, he has all these incredible one-liners of how detrimental people can be with each other in shifting the light, is what he would call it, like when light shifts. And he talked about the difference between inner light and outer light. One of the one-liners, which I love, never associate with people who try to force you to love them, or with the jealous, helpless, needy, and dependent people who are seeking attention. They are vampires. Now that's a pretty strong statement. And I remember when I read it, I immediately was like, oh my gosh, I know what that feels like. Have you ever had that experience where someone forces, not like puts a gun to your head, but they require and demand that you give them attention? They're in your face constantly. Every time you see them, here they are. And they just want, even if it's just say hello. Now, not a big deal. If it's a workplace, you know you've got to play the game and you smile along and everything. But then you get the people who start confiding you and telling you their life drama. And then they want you to fix their life and their drama. But they don't want to do the work. They want you to do the work. Then they feel like they're the best friends and a false relationship is started. And then they start showering you with gifts. And then they expect that to be reciprocated. And then they expect when they call you at midnight, you should answer the phone because they're calling you at midnight. Have you had this, or is it just me? So people start leeching, for lack of a better word. They would start leeching on you. Oh, I've been there for you, and I need you, and need. And of course, I did a workshop a few years back talking about vampires and how they drain the life out of you. I'm sure you know that, and you know experience, or maybe experienced it. So as a matter of fact, find somebody to sit and chit-chat with and talk about your experiences of people who are vampires. May I have your attention, please? So you've been talking about vampires, people who steal our energy. Now remember, in Omega 1, we give the indication that each of us has the potential to burn our brilliance, 110, 100 watt. It's a 100 watt light bulb, so we all can burn our brilliance here. Now, when we are surrounded or have vampires in our lives, they're attracted to this light because their light is not as brilliant. And so they attach themselves to us and then start to diminish our light. That's what can happen. They live off of us, our life force. George had a teacher one time, Father Jack, he talked about this gentleman. He was a pretty hard gentleman, a very hard teacher. He was the teacher that taught sternly. And he said Father Jack would often have the children of the members come and spend the night with him, and he would sleep with them, the children of the members, up to the age of 12, I think it was, I don't recall. But what he was doing was he would cuddle with these kids and steal their energy. He would just, through sleep, he would just grab hold of their energy by sleeping with them, because children are very vibrant. They have a large amount of energy. So those of you who have ever slept with your grandchildren or your children, but especially grandchildren, I noticed the difference because there's a larger age difference. When I would sleep with my girls, different to now grandchildren, I feel a little bit more energetic. But I can tell the distinction, truly, I can tell the distinction when Abby, who's my youngest, 7 now, when she spends the night and sleeps over, not that she sleeps with us anymore, she doesn't sleep around anymore. So I need to correct this, delete this tape. Anyway, those of you who have had that experience, you'll understand that when you sleep with kids or in your proximity, there are a lot of energy. You feel more energetic, although you can also feel drained because it's too much energy for those people who are getting older. In the case of George, the older he got, the less he could be around the kids because it was too much for him. His system couldn't handle it. He needed more peace and quiet, especially with Parkinson's that attacks the nervous system. So here we have it. We have the ability for us to burn our brilliance. Now, I just want to talk about my experiences. I don't know what your experiences are, but I one time had a stalker. A little scary, a little freaky. Those of you who ever had a stalker, they just show up one day. And, you know, there they are. He has a Starbucks in his hand, the Starbucks that I drink, and I know he has no idea what I drink. So that was a little freaky because it was exactly the drink that and I don't just drink a regular, I don't drink coffee, so it was strange that he found it. So that was a little unnerving. But I mentioned false relationships before. So in his mind, he created this relationship that we were friends and that he knew everything about, he did research and knew everything about me, knew where I lived. So here's this gentleman who has created this false relationship, and the more he's around me, the more I'm feeling like this, like I'm wanting to hide now. So I'm actually trying to diminish my light because I don't want to capture any attention. Now I've read stories about people who have had stalkers too, and some of them can be very dangerous. Thankfully, mine was not dangerous, and it was handled without law enforcement. But some people do need to put restraining orders on there because people latch on. So I'm well aware of what can happen when there's a stalker or somebody who latches on in a false relationship. That's what I mentioned. I wanted to stick with the term false relationship. When a false relationship is developed, in their mind, you mean more to them than they do to you. So when there's a false relationship, they see you as their best friend, and you might just see them as an acquaintance, but you are their best friend. And along with best friends, there's requirements. You must call and return phone calls and emails, and you have a certain time frame to return a phone call. And if that phone call is not returned in that time frame, the first thing they experience is concern. Are you okay? You haven't called me back. Is everything okay? So that's concern, the first thing. And then when they discover that you're okay, what does it turn into? Anger, upset. How come you're not calling me back? Well, if everything's okay, what's wrong? Aren't I good enough for you? And then you get the attack that ensues. I have created some interesting relationships in my life. So going through this cycle is very draining, very draining. You get to the point where you see them call and you went, oh, not again, or you don't even want to return emails. Now this can happen with family members too. Sometimes the greatest violators are our family because they have the expectation, just because we share blood, we should tell you how to live your life, or be involved in your life, or I should just be as important to you as you are to me in your life. So sometimes family can really play the guilt trips. You know the Jewish mother, I spent 21 hours in labor for this. What should I get? A phone call? I mean, really, we can lay it on thick. So all of that is just based on guilt. That's a vampire. Pay attention to me. A lot of parents have that experience when the empty nest syndrome kicks in. You take care of the kids, then they leave the house, and then there's nothing. So then they call the kids all the time. Why aren't you here? Why aren't you here? Why aren't you here? And they become somewhat of a burden to their children. So with that, I want to just read a couple of lines out of George's workshop. He says, revenge, jealousy, and violence reduce light to a teeny spark, like a 10-watt bulb next to the sun. So think about how brilliant the sun is, and then you could actually get that tiny in your light. Low-frequency people steal energy from high-frequency people. One must monitor their associates, including family, for this reason. Avoid being drawn into the mental states and psychological games of those of low vibration. So those psychological games, that's when they shower you with gifts. They find out what you like and they shower you with gifts. They want to share those moments with you. And then it starts becoming, they've got the latch, the hook on you. So with that, I don't want to talk about vampires, but I really wanted to introduce that since paying attention to me has the same demeanor, dependency, when people become dependent. George and I, one of the favorite things we used to do early on before he got sick is we would ride up to Sedona. Sometimes we'd just go up there, have lunch, and come back, but we would use the time to talk. We'd talk about the work, we'd talk about activities, applications, and whatnot. And many years ago, in my early, I was going to say childhood years, but in my early facilitating years, George was very free to give feedback. He gave feedback all the time, as a matter of fact. So imagine a 4-hour car ride with George, who loves to give feedback all the time. Loved the man, truly did, could do without the feedback. In small doses, not bad, and I would always fire back at him, you're breaking your own rule, you're supposed to ask for feedback, you never asked me. And he would say, well, if I ask you, I know you're always going to say no. And we'd go round and round, it was funny. Anyway, in one of our sessions, we can call them sessions, in one of our rides up there, he began this topic that led for quite some time. It lasted a few years. He called me insecure, said I was a very insecure individual. Now I took offense at this. What are you talking about insecure? So, he accused me of being insecure. I accused him of overanalyzing. You're overanalyzing everything. I'm not insecure. And we go round and round and round, and God bless his little soul, he put up with me. When he would call me an insecure person, the way I saw it was, when I see an insecure person, I think of weak. In the town of New Yorker, I think weak, a weak person. When you're insecure, you're weak. You're incapable of making decisions. You're shy, fearful. Your actions are dependent upon fear. You're very dependent, obsessed with approval, needy. And I don't have any of those characteristics. What are you talking about? I'm not insecure. So we would go round and round on that because for me, I didn't think I had any of that. Through the years, today, I really do see clearly about the idea of insecurity and how every person in one way or another has insecurity. It's not that you're a weak individual, but no one can be strong in all areas of our lives. there are times when, well, in Omega 1, we talk about this. Everyone experiences fear. The moment you're in the fear, you're insecure. You feel insecure. You're able to have your stability knocked free. And that's what it led me to, the idea about stability. When I think about stability, George had made this, here it is. Insecurity is the absence of stability. So we mentioned this in Omega 1. When we climb up the mountain, we say at the top of the mountain, you have the ability to be secure. And I make comments like, you know, if I'm on the lower level of the mountain, I'm dependent, and I ask you, what do you think about my shirt? And you say, oh, yeah, that's the worst, I'll change it. In the middle of the mountain, I'll say, what do you think about my shirt? And if you say the same thing, it might hurt, but I might think, I don't know, I kind of like it. I might change one or twice, but not for everyone. On the top level of the mountain, I don't even ask you. That's what we talk about stability. Stability means what your opinion should not matter. I would have the inner voice, inner confidence to follow through no matter what. Even if you're screaming and yell at me, I should not be offended. It should not affect me at all. I would have the ability to find compassion and understanding for you. It wouldn't rattle me. Have you had this experience where somebody has an event in front of you, or you're experiencing an event and it rattles you and you can't shake it? It just rattles you and you cannot shake it. I wrote about this a few weeks ago, and I still have not shaken this event. It still rattles me. So, when it comes to insecurity, I discovered that George was correct. I am an insecure individual. And I would even go so far as saying that back then, I probably was a very needy, dependent individual. I needed his approval, first of all. You know, I needed George's approval. But I probably was a little bit more invested in the approval of the participants, far more than I am today. Today, I know I'm good to be there, I'm good, I'm gone, doesn't matter. If you hate me, scream and yell at me, not a problem. I'm fine with it, doesn't affect me. So I feel clear about that. But I do still feel like that there's times in my life I am insecure, especially, you know, with your husband or your wife, your partner. There's always a little sense of insecurity. Am I going to offend them? How's this going to affect the relationship? Or with children, you know, when you're raising children, you have the same experience. I thought about, started thinking of when it came to insecurity. I started thinking about the risks that I'd taken, because when it comes to the risks, that feeling of taking a risk, remember the last risk you took? How exhilarating it was. You feel alive, like a kid. You feel alive and energetic, real big smile. And I thought to myself, with all the risks that I've taken, how long was I able to maintain that state of being? A day or two, a week, maybe until the first confrontation or the first time somebody gets upset with me, and then it's gone. Why is that? So I thought, okay, the risks that I've taken, I've gone skydiving twice. Totally loved it, would do it again in a heartbeat. I've rappelled 100 feet down off of a mountain cliff. I've stood face to face with a bald eagle. Those of you who knew I was afraid of birds, face to face with a bald eagle. She kissed me right on the nose. I mean, that was amazing, truly life-changing experience. I've kayaked with killer whales, orcas, sorry, they're nice little animals. I kayaked with those whale things in the water, and they come up to the boat, scare the crap out of you. I've done that. A kayak is in the water, low. Whale is in the water. They're big. So I've kayaked with killer whales. I mean, I started thinking, zip lining, of course. I started thinking about all the physical risks that I've taken. And how long did that last? Out of that whole list of lists, in reviewing the list in my life, the physical risk, I think it was the eagle that lasted the longest, and I believe it was about 2 weeks. About 2 weeks that I was able to maintain that absolute incredible high of standing face to face with the bald eagle. And then it dissipated. And that was some 3-4 years now. It's been a while since I've done that. So then I thought, well, physical risks aren't the only risks that we can take. We can take emotional and mental and spiritual risks as well. When I thought about what the different types of risks there, how long did those lasting effect on me? So my first self-awareness program was at the age of 16. It was with my church, but it was I really had an awareness in there, and it shifted the way I looked at myself and at the other kids, peer pressure and whatnot. Moving to college when I was 18 in Buffalo. Who moves to Buffalo? I actually moved to Buffalo. Moving to Arizona, out on my own. When I came out to Arizona, I had $300 in my pocket. I didn't have a job. I didn't have a car. I didn't even have a place to live, and there was only one person I knew. I packed up my bags and came out here, and that was 28 years ago. So that was a huge risk, flying all the way across the country. As a matter of fact, it wasn't until about 2 or 3 years ago that my father actually made the comment that I left him. He really thought I left him, because I remember when he dropped me off at the airport, he said, "So you're going to go?" And I said, "Yeah." And he goes, "Fine." He turned around and walked away. Didn't even say goodbye or anything. And I remember, man, he's really mad about something. It didn't occur to me that he thought I was leaving him. But I was the first child to leave the family to go to college, and then the first one clearly across the country. Then I remember the first time I was introduced to meditation. Fell in love with it, and some of the great inspirations that I've had out of meditation. I remember my very first Omega 1. Like it was yesterday, walked through those doors, never left. I remember that, life-changing. The very first 10-day silent retreat that I went on, how peaceful and calm I felt when it was over, and how quickly that dissipated, because that was right when the Sandy Hook incident happened, with all the kids being killed. And I came out of my 10-day peaceful retreat to the massacre of children. Testing my stability, out the door. I mean, truly knocked me, it really knocked off I was not very stable, let's just say. So then I went back and thought, okay, so I've had all these risks, physical, emotional, mental, spiritual risks. I've had some life-changing events where I literally can go back and say, yes, my life changed from that moment on. The day I met my adopted father. In college, this teacher took me in, brought me in as if I was one of his kids. This is where I learned about loving just because you can. Art taught me unconditional love. That's what started me fostering kids, because of art. Just taking kids. That's what he would do. I was just one student of a very long list of students that he would take in. And I learned, changed my life. I learned you can love anyone just because you can. Nothing's owed, and nothing was ever owed from art. Just a beautiful, beautiful individual. So I thought of that, life-changing events where my life changed. So my life changed, but inside the stability was not there. Maybe inching up a little bit more, but I still can get rattled. I still am not able to sustain my sense of being. So the event that happened a few weeks ago, the negative, violent event, it still rattles me. I should have been able to, okay, and I was able to pass it, go through to the next thing that I had to get through, but it's still, today I recall it, and it still rattles me. I still have a knot in my stomach every time I think about it. Find myself trying to distract myself, playing endless hours of solitaire because I don't want to think about it. And then I put the phone down going, oh, and then I think about it. So what is it about a human being that is unable, prevents me from maintaining that high, that peace, that compassion, that serenity that I seek? And once I attain it, I cannot maintain it. Why is that? Have a conversation with your buddy about that. The event that occurred, I was unprepared for. It caught me completely and totally by surprise. And that's why I still have the knot in my stomach. I wasn't prepared for that. I was shocked. I was in a moment of shock, like, what? So, when I don't have prepare and attached to an outcome, all the answers that you said, there's no right or wrong answer here. I just want to get us to start thinking about it. But quick question for you. How many people want to have awareness? How many people would like to have awareness? Are you willing to pay the price for awareness? Does anybody know what the price is for awareness? What's the price?
You have to accept everything.
I must practice acceptance. Yes. Implement the virtues: contentment, peace, serenity. I will implement the virtues. I used to have these right off the top of my head. It's reticence, contentment, reticence, diligence, liberty, temperance, chastity, stability, joy, humility, striving, courage, daring, discrimination, solemnity, harmlessness, service, compassion, patience, fearlessness, gratitude, responsibility, enthusiasm, sacrifice, and finally, nobility. There's 24 words right there, 24 things that I can work on in my daily life every day. I can work on these items. How much do I do that? So that's the price to pay, to be conscious. Most of us want to have awareness, but we don't have the consciousness of it. Why do we still react? We want to rise above reaction, but we still react, because we are reactive creatures. So, what I want to continue on, this has captured my attention now. It's clear that outside events affect my inner state of being. Good or bad, whatever I deem, they affect me internally. Now, outside events can elevate me. Outside events can elevate me, or they could cause a reaction. So there are some things that I seek for elevation on the inner level, and there are some things that will cause me to descend on the inner level as well. What captured my attention was the word attention. I went with the idea of the attention. Pay attention to me, because that's, again, back to me and Marc in Maui, in the rainforest. Pay attention to me. Why aren't you paying attention to me? You know, we have these beautiful tropic things. No, pay attention to me. Forget the waterfalls, it's me. I'm exaggerating, it wasn't like that. But that's sometimes what we can do. We can be in the most beautiful thing, and all we want you to do is focus on me, not and see our surroundings. So, I'm captured by the word attention. Webster defines attention as the act or state of applying the mind to something, when I put my attention to something. A condition of readiness for such attention involving especially selective narrowing or focus of consciousness and receptivity. So I'm setting, getting myself set. It's for consideration of view to an act of civility or courtesy, especially in courtship. I'm paying attention to my husband or my wife. Sympathetic consideration of the needs and wants of others. I paid attention and took care of George, so he had my attention. A position assumed by a soldier with heels together, arms erect. Remember that? Stand at attention, eyes front. I used to do that. We used to have to do that when we were kids if we weren't in the military. We had to stand at attention. So those are some of the definitions that came up. Now, when I think about attention, I was thinking about the different examples that we pay attention, because the words pay attention, what we're really doing is when somebody requests that I pay attention, I am paying my attention to you. I'm giving my attention to you. I'm giving my energy to you when somebody commands or demands that I pay attention. So examples of attention. We focus our attention on a particular poem or reading. When we're reading something, we focus our attention. Watching the news, we focus our attention on that. Or here's an example, my attention wasn't really on the game. So sometimes when we miss or drop the football or something, well, you weren't paying attention, so you missed the game. Or those who play golf, that funny little game that you swing, and the ball in the air, it's a little green hole in the water. So if you're not paying attention to what you're doing, you probably won't get that in there. My attention wasn't really on the game. You need to pay more attention in school, so we demand that the children pay more attention in school. She likes all the attention that she's getting from the media. The celebrities who are media junkies, they love that the media follows them around. The actor avoids drawing attention to himself. So there are some people who don't like attention. I said that earlier. In our house, you were good if you didn't get the attention. The book has received national attention, so now everyone's got the idea of this new thought. The trial is getting a lot of public attention, the Jodi Arias trial. I honestly don't really follow the news, and you know, it was almost over before I realized it was happening here in Mesa. I heard people talking about Jodi Arias. I thought it was someplace somebody committed murder, and then I went, it was in Mesa? What? What happened? And then I started reading up on it. That was one of the first things my family mentioned when they came out here. Where's the Jodi Arias? Does she live around here? I'm like, I don't know. But O.J. Simpson, look at O.J. Simpson and how much attention he got on that trial. And got away with it, and everybody watched a man get away with murder. I'm sorry, that was a bit judgmental, wasn't it? Everybody watched this trial unfold, and now he has justice. He's in prison now, for those of you who don't know that. He is in prison. Do you know the story? This is a little side note. So he was he was in Las Vegas, and he broke into this guy's room, this man who had bought a bunch of memorabilia from O.J. Simpson online, bought it legitimately. O.J. broke in with a bunch of his thug friends and stole the stuff, and it was on video camera. They got recorded, right? So the judge in Nevada was very priceless. She was this woman, and obviously, you know, no contest. And so he's thinking he's just going to go to jail for, I don't know, a year or two for theft. She looked directly at him and said, I'm going to give you the sentence you should have got 4 years ago. And gave him the maximum she could have possibly, and added on charges. I think he's going to be in jail for quite some time. Okay, the children were competing for the teacher's attention. Children compete for our parents' attention. So that's another form of attention. A cat on a leash is sure to attract attention. Have you ever seen anybody walking a cat? I have. It's very strange. And you're right, you could be driving and what the heck is that? You know, and then you're not paying attention to the driving. It can be very deadly. I would like to call your attention to a problem we're having. So when you're doing problem solving at work, we put our focus and attention on something that's not working well. So those are just different areas that we pay attention to. Now, the idea of when we demand attention is very harmful. There are some people who are quite vindictive about this. If you don't pay attention to me, I will make you pay. Have you had those experiences? When you don't pay attention and then you get the cold shoulder? You know, the wives who get upset because their husbands forget the anniversary and then they get all snarky and bitty and mean and act out on them. That is an example of being vindictive. When your child doesn't do something that you want them to do, you give them the silent treatment. That's vindictive and harmful. So when it comes to, if you don't pay attention to me, I'm going to make you pay, it's a perfect example of a child throwing a temper tantrum. How many people in here have ever seen a child throw a temper tantrum? Both hands up. Now, from the perspective of a parent, it's a little frustrating. But as a grandparent or somebody who's watching somebody else's kid do the temper tantrum, it's hysterical. And it's hard not to laugh because you know what's happening, but you just can't. Except when it's happening to you, then there's a little bit of a stress there. Some of you may have heard me tell the story. My granddaughter, she is priceless, very temperamental child. And so a few years ago for Christmas, she started throwing a temper tantrum. And she took herself into the corner and faced the corner because that's what her mom always does for her. So she just put herself there because she knew she was going to be there. She's screaming and yelling and kicking the walls, and I'm laughing, thinking, so she knows where to go. She knows what to do, and she pretty much called a halt to it. When she looked, she goes, okay, I'm done. I think that's hysterical, but her parents are like, that's not, you know. Anyway, so when you watch a child throw a temper tantrum, what I thought about was this. Can we really blame the child? Think about it. Can we really blame the child? You see, from the moment that baby was born, it had our attention. We all cuddle and coodle it and coochie-coo and can't wait to hold that baby. Every time it cries, we get it food, we change its diapers, we take care of its health and welfare. For the first 6 months, that child is our focus. Well, unfortunately now it's about 3 months. After 3 months, the mom usually goes back for maternity leave. So let's say for the first 3 months, for the first 3 months of that baby's life, it has your attention. Anytime it needs something, it gets it. So can we truly blame a child for the temper tantrums? We are paying attention to these babies. They are a product of us, so we're holding on to them, we take care of them, we touch them, we give them everything we can, we coo and we get excited when they go, God, oh look, he said Dad, you know, and we make things up even though they don't. So we really, our life is surrounded by this baby until maternity leave happens and end up going back to work, or another sibling comes along, and then all of a sudden, what's introduced? Sibling rivalry. Now you've got the kids who are fighting over it. So my older brother, when he had children, they planned this for the first 5 years of their marriage, no kids. They wanted to enjoy each other, go travel, do whatever they wanted. They planned it. And then after 5 years, they had my niece, first daughter. They waited 2 years because they wanted to give her enough time, ample time, and learn how to be a good parent. And then they had my nephew, Kevin. So when Kevin was born, my niece was out. They're still trying to do mommy time with the niece. Everyone gets time with Katie. So Katie's out on the swings with my sister-in-law, Ellen. So Kevin's got to be about 1 now, and Katie's out on the swings, and she turns to Ellen and says, Mommy, can we take Kevin back? I'm done having a brother. And they would fight. I'd watch her. She'd push him down. Anytime she could see him, push him down, not want him to get near my sister-in-law, just really disliked having to share mommy with another child. So sometimes it's unfortunate, the sibling rivalry happens because we doted so much on one child that the next one, the first one goes, what happened? All of a sudden all this attention now is gone, what happened? So now we start fighting for attention. I now have to share mommy's attention now, we start fighting. And then, you know, think about families that have 12, 15 kids. You know that show that's on TV, that woman who just has like 21 children? Have you seen that show? What's her name? Somebody help me out.
The Duggars.
Yeah.
The Doggers? Is
The
that
Duggars, yeah.
She just keeps producing child after child. I don't get it. And I sit and I watch and I think, okay, it works for them. But I look at the young ones and I look at the older ones, and the responsibility of the older ones is to take care of the younger ones. So the 12-year-old kids, are they really having a childhood, or they're being a parent at the age of 12? Is that effective? I don't know. They seem happy. I don't know. I haven't watched it in a while, but it really was quite strange to see so many children, and I thought, how are those kids having the appropriate amount of attention on? Because then if you go to the flip side, what happens if you don't get enough attention? It's equally destructive when somebody has too much attention, and when they don't have enough attention, both sides, equally destructive. Let's take, for point in case here, a single child. Sometimes single children are spoiled because you're the only kid. You get your way all the time. Whatever you want, you get the way. They learn how to manipulate very fast. If mommy's not going to do it, daddy will. If daddy won't do it, mommy will. They learn how to pit the parents against each other because they're the only kid. So they don't have to fight for attention. They just know how to manipulate the attention now. So they're really cunning, very cunning. At the age of 5, most single children are really good at manipulation. They're excellent at it. I see you, Michael. Hang on a second. So when it comes to the siblings, when they come along, back to the idea of too much attention, not enough attention. If you know anything about eagles, this is intriguing, that when eaglets are born, they will fight with each other to get the food. And there's a website. It's a really incredible website. It's up in Decorah, Idaho, I think, where it's up on an eagle's nest. And every year, these 2 eagles have been nesting for about 5 or 6 years now. They always return to the same nest. And they've been producing 3 eaglets for 6 years now, which is rare. Usually you have about 2. They do 3 every year. So you can watch them. It's an eagle cam. It's a live feed. It's a streaming video. So you can watch the eagles, the eggs being laid, and the eagles sitting on them, and then eventually the eggs breaking free, the eaglets coming free from the shell. And usually the first one who breaks free is the strongest one, because he's matured more. So I think it's like a day or 2. And one year, I think it was about a week that the first one was born, and then the last one came out of its shell. And when that last guy came out of its shell, do you think it had love and admiration from the other 2? When mom came with the food, they stepped on it. I mean, just get it out of the way. They don't want it to, because that means less food for them. So there's a rivalry right there. Now it's sad to see, watching. You want everyone to survive. You feel bad. And you can tell that the eagles who are feeding the eaglets, they try to get the food over to the younger one. You can see they're trying to make sure everyone has food, but the stronger ones will often take it out of the mouth of the parent, and then the parent will just go. And sometimes I've seen it where the parent will just say, okay, the little one's not eating, so just go feed the one that is. So at times, thankfully, I haven't seen one die yet, but I know there's stories where the eaglets will actually push the other one out of the nest. When they get to be strong enough, they'll push them out because they want to be the ones to have the food. That's nature. That truly is Mother Nature. If you think about it in anything, it doesn't just have to be eagles, it can be anything. Yeah, that's nature at play. Now, of course, naturally, we human beings try to believe that we're above nature. Go into the desert with no water and tell me how much you're above nature. You're going to suffer just like everyone else does. But we try to pretend that we're more refined, that we are more educated, but yet when it comes down to it, we are animalistic just like that. We butt heads and strive for attention and play the games, probably a little bit more sophisticated. At least it's more honest, push them out of the nest. You know what you're going for. There's no games behind the back, backstabbing, or digging a hole and let the eagle fall through. None of that, just natural, push it out. But we human beings like to sophisticate things and make it look like we're not mean people. Why? Because we want the attention of everyone. If I'm a mean person, no one's going to pay attention to me. So I want to pretend I'm the good guy. I've had many experiences of this where you would have an event unfold and everyone scrambles to make sure it's not them that gets blamed. I mean, it's quite funny. Have you had this happen at work where an event will happen, something goes wrong, and everyone scrambles to take their position to make sure that they are known that it wasn't their fault? I mean, how much energy is spent on that is amazing, absolutely amazing. So, back to this idea of too much attention and not enough attention. So there's got to be some way that we could balance this. When I think about the kids going to school, think of this. So not only do you have to compete with the attention for your parents, now you're competing with 20 other kids in the classroom for one teacher. So now they're actually even more competitive in school. And then think about when our kids come home from school and they bring those, those goofy paintings that you can't quite understand what it is, but they'll explain it and tell you, and it makes sense to them, and we, oh, how pretty! And we put it up on the fridge, and then they come home with another painting, and oh, how And we say yay, and we put it up on the fridge. Up on the fridge is big for the kids. It goes up on the fridge. And then when they get an A, put it up on the fridge. So now we reward them for good behavior. So they are learning that when they perform, they will get a reward, henceforth attention. So we, inadvertently, are training our children, the next generation, to seek attention, just like we were trained from our parents to seek attention. It seems to just been passed down from generation to generation. When I mentioned this, when you have too much attention, it's harmful. When you have too much attention, the thing that can happen is the child develops very selfish and ego-driven adults. They turn into a very selfish and ego-driven. It's all about me. When there's too much attention, it's all about me. They're accustomed to being pampered. They're upset when they don't get their way. How dare you? Who do you think you are? Don't you know who I am? As a matter of fact, we used to have a funny joke around here years ago. We had a facilitator who somebody confronted them and they went, well, don't you know who I am? I mean, said it out loud. It was very funny. That became like the joke behind the scenes. Well, don't you know who I am? Because obviously not everybody knows who you are, but such arrogance. Well, of course you should follow me. Don't you know who I am? We're like, okay. Yeah, what was your name again? So sometimes that can happen to us. Not enough attention is equally harmful. Sometimes children develop into very needy and often unstable individuals when they don't get enough attention. Psychology has coined the phrase that they're starved from attention from they weren't loved enough by their mom. You know, I'm sure you've heard that, where psychology jumps in and explains a lot of root causes to some malfunctions or unstable adults just because they weren't loved enough, they didn't get enough attention, they were rejected, so on and so forth. Now, when I place my attention outside of myself, I'm obsessed with myself. How do I look? How do I sound? How funny am I? Aren't you impressed with me? On the lower levels of the mountain, it's always about me. When I place my attention outside of myself, I require all about me to observe me. Pay attention to me. So my attention is out there. Everyone, pay attention to me, pay attention to me, pay attention to me. When I was thinking about this, I thought about, it would be really funny if I could get everyone to do this, but you don't have this. So I have this mirror, but imagine if everybody had a mirror, or if I had a mirror for everybody. Now when I place my attention on myself, this is what I do. Oh my gosh, my hair looks goofy. Okay, so here's what I do. I don't see you, I see me. And I'm paying attention to me. This is kind of hard for me to do. So, I mean, not hold, I just don't like staring at myself. All right, so I'm blocking you all out, and now all I see is me, and I will talk to myself. Now, when I'm on the lower levels of the mountain, and all I consider is me, all I think about, for those of you who can see me, I'm really trying to stare at myself. Stop looking at me on the side. But actually, I want you to look at me. So, when it's all about me, this is all I see, this is what I want, and this is what I want you to see. And I get offended that you don't see what I see. Now, when I'm coming from the bottom level of the mountain and it's ego-driven, I'm going to look at the beauty in me. Look how wonderful I am. Look how funny I am. Look at how much a contribution I've made. And I will take this mirror and insist that you see what I see. Demand it and command it. This is what I see. This is what I want you to see. When I have this mirror up, it's as if you don't exist. Or your sole purpose for existing is to see how wonderful I am. That's your whole sole purpose, how wonderful I am. Oops, I think that's better. Very good. I almost felt like the guy with the sign. Is there anything on the back here? Okay. So I should actually put something there. But all right, so here I am. I'm holding this mirror up. It's all about me. Pay attention to me. Look at me, how wonderful I am. When I'm on the bottom level of the mountain and I'm dependent, I require that you observe me. Every conversation will be about me. Every topic that I talk about, I will somehow be able to thread it back to me. I assume that everybody here wants to hear about me. Now I'm about to contradict myself because I do tell stories about myself, but that's more about exposing me. So I just wanted to clarify that. Okay, so here I am. Back to talking about me. Now I remember that there was, all right, you got the point. I don't want to just hold that up on the camera. But that's the point. It's all about me. Everyone pay attention to me. I remember when I learned about Greek mythology. I think it was about 6th grade. Fell in love with Greek mythology. Thought it was wonderful. And there was the story of the one Greek god who was obsessed with his own obsession in the water. Narcissus. Narcissus was obsessed with his own obsession. Now, the story of him, actually, I did a little research on him to make sure I said this correctly, because it's all about me. So the research is that he was a young man born in a town of Thespili, I think, the son of a river goddess and a fountain nymph. So he was the son. He was celebrated for his beauty. He was very, very beautiful, which is strange to say a man was beautiful. I could say he was handsome, but back then, the theory is he was very beautiful, had an unequal beauty. I think the female goddess equal to his beauty was Athena. Is that the one who's the god of Venus? I don't recall. Anyway, so it was unequal. No male was as beautiful as this one. So he attracted a lot of many admirers. They'd come and admire him. Well, he was also very arrogant. All about me, because look how beautiful I am. You should be paying attention to me because I'm the most beautiful one on the planet. That's how he was. You know, as a matter of fact, side note here, isn't it intriguing though, in Sleeping Beauty, the mirror, the woman would look in the mirror, who's the fairest of the all? It's the mirror she's looking at, who's the fairest of the all, the evil step-witch lady. So, you know, I know grandchildren would be able to spell the names off, but it's just the woman in the green mirror, and the mirror would always say, mirror, mirror on the wall, who's the fairest of them all? That's what she would say to them, and the mirror would say, oh, there was one fairy far more beautiful than you, or something. But she's looking in a mirror, so that, I think, is very dynamic that they use that. Anyway, back to Narcissus. So he was so arrogant that oftentimes he would scorn the people. Oh, don't waste my time, I'm more beautiful than you, I don't need to spend my time with you. You are unworthy of my appearance. I mean, that's how it would get. I'm exaggerating, but that's where it came to. Now, what happened is, he ended up having a curse placed upon him. So two people who came, and he pissed off, for lack of a better word. One of them was a nymph, Echo. Anybody know the story about Echo? She was cursed by God because she talked so much. So Hera was the god who gave her a curse to get her to stop talking, that she could only echo what somebody else said. She can never come up with an original thought. She can only echo what somebody else said. That was her curse. Well, when she went to go see Narcissus and he spawned her, she said, I don't want to see you, spurned her, turned her away. It devastated her, and she disappeared, and all you could hear is just echoes now. That's all. So that's the nature of, that's the philosophy of the Greek, why there's always echoes in canyons, because that's her sobbing and trying to hide in the canyon. And the next one was Amenius, and he was so upset that Narcissus wasn't paying attention to him that he requested a curse be placed upon Narcissus. He went to the god Nemesis. Nemesis, you know, Nemesis is the one who causes, he's your friend who causes pain. So Nemesis to avenge, you know, Narcissus hurt my feeling, go punish him. So Nemesis is the one who put the curse on him that he was so enthralled with his beauty, he could not move from the pools. He was obsessed with himself, that all he did, he fell in love with his own image in the water, and he could not move. And he eventually died there. He withered away. He lost all of his power and greatness because it was all just about the beauty in the pool. He fell in love with his own beauty, which by definition, Narcissus is egocentrism, love of, or sexual desire of your own body. That's a narcissist. Do you remember the movie Silence of the Lambs? Remember that's freaky, creepy movie. And that guy was a narcissist. He was in love with his body. He wanted to become a woman, so he was cutting women's body out and making his own women suit to put on, a suit of a woman to put on. That's a narcissist. A narcissist is someone who assumes that everybody naturally wants to hear about every little detail in my life. Naturally. Of course you would. What's wrong with you if you don't? That's a narcissist. So here we have it. We have, when I'm on the lower levels of the mountain, I have this narcissist behavior. It's all about me. Pay attention to me. I want you to look at me, find out how wonderful I am, observe me. I'm obsessed with me. Now, here's the struggle I have. In the work, we often request self-observation. Well, what is the difference between self-observation and self-obsession? Talk to your buddy about that. Again, no right or wrong answers, just having you think about this. So when I have self-obsession, and when I'm thinking about me, this feeds my ego, as I mentioned before. But if I could look into this mirror and look for self-observation, I think they're broken, I'm not sure. If I look in this mirror and I find self-observation, what I'm looking for are areas of improvement. When I say, okay, this is what I see, now what do I do? Now that I'm aware of this, now what do I do? So I apply the work. That's an application of the work. Now, when I think about the work, Manly P. Hall has a great book called The Way of the Lonely Ones, because it's a difficult task. To be able to look at yourself, see beauty, but also see, what's the opposite of beauty? Ugly. So find the ugly things in me as well, the things that aren't as beautiful, and rise those vibrations, to find the low vibrations and the high vibrations, and to be able to raise my consciousness so I'm not so reactive. When it comes to the idea of a worker, eventually what we want to do is to be able to hold the mirror up so others have an opportunity to be of service, so they have an opportunity to see themselves. That's what we talk about in Omega. In Omega we say, now I don't do this, but in Omega essentially what we say is we hold the mirror up for you to see you. Have no agenda, have no attachment, but I'm in service to you. If this assists you, then that is my task. Now in Omega, as a true server, one who understands the art of service, this is what really would happen. You don't see me, you see a mirror. Now, when it comes to this, it takes a strong person to be somebody who's willing to be, I want to be careful here because I'm not claiming that this is me. I'm thinking of George. Somebody who holds this mirror up and never needs to be seen. George never needed to be seen. His work constantly was, how can I make a contribution? How can I make a contribution? How can I make a contribution? So this is effort. This takes effort. This is work. To be able to hold this mirror up at all times for you, not for him. He gets no reward out of this. A worker gets no reward, per se, on the physical realm, because it's not about me. So we hold this mirror up for you. So that's one distinction, that once you start the path of the work, you have the mirror which is focused on you for vanity and feeding your ego, and we turn it, if I could just use that illustration, I turn it for reflection, observation, to be of service, to make me be a better human being. Once I've achieved a level of vibration that allows me to understand the concept of service, then I have the ability to turn this around on you. Now here's a flaw. I could use this as a flaw. Here's a flaw that happens to some students. They understand self-reflection, start seeing things, and turn the mirror around before it's time. It's too early. So we turn the mirror around, and I'm now in service to you, but I haven't completed my tasks yet. So now I'm focusing on you, but I haven't finished my work. So then I am incongruent. I'm out of integrity, actually. I start holding people accountable on integrity when I don't have any. I start holding you to becoming more conscious and aware when I'm not. I start calling you on your reactions, but I am still reactive. So that's where it can occur injurious, harmful. If I turn this mirror around too early, where I'm not mature enough yet, if I haven't risen above my ego, if I haven't risen above that reactive child state, if I'm still on the lower levels of the mountain, and I turn this mirror around, I'm going to be destructive. Rather than elevate you and be of service, it will still be about me. Because this is what it will be. You still see me. A true server is the one who can do this, where it's not about you. So that's a word of caution. Those of you who start doing this work, if you're on the path of service. You don't have to be on the path of service to do the work, to self-observe. You don't have to be on the path of service to reflect and see how you can be a better human being. But eventually, when you get towards the top, or your desire is toward the top, then you understand the concept of service. So as I said before, once you have the concept of understanding the art of service, that's when you can turn that mirror around. Truly grasp it, that it's not about you. It's much to this idea of the lights. Can you turn the lights off, Susan? Those of us who are ego-driven, we're on the bottom of the mountain, pay attention, you look how wonderful I am. It's as if the spotlight is on, and it's on me. No one gets the attention, I do. Call for me, always clean, pay attention to me. Pay attention to me, pay attention to me. This is somebody who demands your light. And eventually, you will all diminish into darkness, and I'm the only one you see. Now that's ego-driven. When somebody understands the art of self-reflection and the ability to use light, that's when we turn the light upwards so that everyone can see now. And if this truly was a dark room and I can elevate this much higher than I am, you would not see me anymore. I would end up being in the darkness because I'm underneath supporting the light. You wouldn't see me anymore. You would be drawn to the light, not me. And when you're drawn to the light, that helps you elevate. So it's not about me anymore. This is where I understand the art of service. I'm holding the light up for you, not for me. I'm holding it up for you. Not many people can attain this stature. Not many people can attain that vibration. Thank you, Susan. You can turn that back up again. When I think about this, of course, it always brings me back to that story in the Manly P. Hall book, The Way of the Lonely Ones. He writes about many different ventures that people have on the path and how it's considered a lonely path because really you dissipate and become part of the path. It's not about you anymore. It's about being of service. Sometimes I struggle in areas of my life. Yes, I struggle. Sometimes I do struggle through the years in Omega. I see people come in and out, and I'm here to help people. I'm gonna make people be better people, and they miss the point. It's not about helping, because when you're helping someone, you get the reward. But of service, when you're in service to the work. When you're in service to the work, you have the ability to clean toilets or facilitate. You have the ability to climb up in the attic and get dirty. Anything that needs to be done, you're available. So when you're in service, you understand availability, no reacting. So remember, back to the concept in the very beginning where it says pay attention to me. When we can rise above the pay attention to me, do you know what you find? Peace, serenity, compassion, energy, the things that we desire. Once I let go of the ego, I actually reach the state that I'm doing risks to reach. I actually can reach it at a place where it resonates within me, where I can have peace. Even if someone's screaming at me, I can find peace and serenity. Even if somebody is threatening my life, I can have peace and serenity. Now, I'm not there. I have a little bit more attachment to my life right now, so I'm not there. But that's really what we're striving for. George talked about that a great deal. How when it comes to keeping this work pure, we must be mindful that the people who come to serve here have pure intention. That's why we state, staff members, we won't let anyone just staff. We won't let anybody facilitate. There's a process to go through to make sure that you're here to keep the work pure. Not to diminish anyone. I mean, I'm grateful for all the people who show up, even if they don't have a high vibration. Every vibration, every little bit helps. I mean, even just a little tiny 10-watt light bulb adds more light. So that in itself I'm grateful for. But back to the idea of the Way of the Lonely Ones, that story that I usually reiterate. My favorite piece of artwork, Susan found this years ago, and it's my favorite piece of artwork. I don't know if many of you have ever seen this. In the gift shop, we have it online. You can actually look for it. I don't remember the artist's name. I don't have it on this piece right here. But if you look closely, this candle, the wick of the candle is a woman. She's the source of it burning. And so to me, I think that's service. That here's a woman who is engulfed in the flame, but it's her job to keep that flame up. So like when you look at it, you see a candle, but if you look closely, it's the woman inside. That's the wick. That to me is a picture of a true server. I remember when I first stumbled across this, I thought, that's what I want. I want that position right there. I want to be the one burning. Not about the light for me, but holding that light up so it's brighter for everyone. That's the idea. And then, of course, I read Manly P. Hall's story in The Way of the Lonely One. He has a beautiful story about a gentleman who lived in a town his whole life, and I don't know, sometime in his livelihood, I want to say his 40s, he looked up and saw a light on the mountain that he'd never seen before. And he'd seen this light, he's lived there all his whole life, but he'd never seen the light. So curiosity got the best of him, so he decided to investigate, find out what this light was. So he climbs all the way up, trials and tribulations, almost falls, sheer cliffs, many risks he has to take, but he finally gets to the top. And when he gets to the top, he sees this little old man, long gray beard, flowing robes, holding a lantern. And he's bewildered. What are you doing? I like my version better because I add stuff. Dude, what's up? So the old man stands there and just looks at him and says, well, I'm holding a light for the world. And so he said, well, what? And the old man says, well, there's 6 of us. There's 7 total. There's 6 other lanterns, if you can see. So he looks around, sure enough, on 6 other mountaintops, there's lights, where he had never seen that before. He said, I don't get that. What? And he wanted to hold the lantern up for humanity. We hold these lights for humanity. This is our service to humanity. Well, he was in their conversation. The traveler was very moved and said, please let me take this light from you. Let me take your task. Are you here forever? And he said, no, it's until somebody comes and replaces me. So he decides, I want to do it. So here's somebody who has the idea of going from vanity all about me to self-observation. Oh, self-observation. But he was not prepared to turn the mirror around. So now he steps up and he says, oh, let me do it, I can do it, I can do it. So the master says, okay, if this is what you want to do, go ahead and do it. Spin my back. He says, if this is what you want to do, go ahead and do it. And if at any time you decide that you cannot do it anymore, call me, I'll come back. No, it's good, you're good, go. He felt full of love and compassion for this one human being who was holding a light for humanity. So the dude floats off into the clouds to his next position, wherever it is. So here's the traveler. He's got that lantern, and he is psyched. He's stoked. Yeah, woo! I'm holding up the lantern for humanity. Hey, dudes, what's going on? So he's there. He's holding up this lantern. He feels excited. And then the wind starts blowing. Oh, crap, I forgot a coat. And then he hears, oh, God, am I dinner? And then, where is my dinner? So you know what's happening, right? So reality sets in. Uh-oh, what did I get myself into? Now, the longer he's up there, the more despair comes and sets in. But no matter how much he tries to put his arm down, he cannot. He is fixed. He cannot move. And then he begins to despair and despise that light. He begins to hate it. He wishes he never saw it before, ever. He is so much in agony, he cannot wait to get out. He starts thinking he's seeing things going crazy, so the light begins to diminish and diminish and diminish until it's barely a spark. At that moment, the flowing robes dude gently floats down. Yeah, what was he smoking when he wrote this? Sorry. So the gentleman, delete that please. The gentleman floats back down and says, my son, you're not ready to take on this task, and grabs the lantern from him. Immediately the light shines back up, and this traveler, oh my God, thank you, crazed, runs back down to his village. Now, of course, it takes some time to get back down there, but when he gets back to his village, he discovers that he doesn't fit in anymore. The people that he knew have moved on, life had changed, the rhythms have changed, and he didn't belong. And no matter how much he tried to fit in, no matter how much he tried to resume life, it wasn't satisfying. And all the while, he keeps looking back up at that light. He keeps looking back up at that light, and he's drawn to it. And he recognizes that he tasted it. He understood the idea of being of service. And once you taste that, it's impossible to go back. But he wasn't prepared for it. He was not prepared for it. So unfortunately, that was, I want to say not clean. His intentions were not pure. So when his intentions were not pure, it backfired on him. And he ended up being of disservice because now he wandered around in life not fitting in and not being able to make any kind of contribution. So to me, I think that's a beautiful story of how we see and desire the greatness, but we're unwilling to pay the piper. We don't want to pay the price. I asked you before, those of you who want consciousness, every hand went up. Those of you, are you willing to pay the price? Oh yeah. What's the price we have to pay? Hands went down. So the work, we've introduced this to you for years. You know this. You've talked about it. Those of you who've been around, we understand the work is one moment at a time. It's not easy. That's why we call it the work. It's moment by moment. You'll have setbacks. You will have despair. You will have unstable moments that knock you off and go, what the heck? So here I am, 28 years into the work, and I still am thrown off completely by a shocking event that came around that I did not expect. Will I recover? Naturally. I hope I will. Let me just ask the mirror. I assume I will because I understand the work. Everything has value, and I haven't quite found the value yet, so I'm assuming I will recover. And if I don't, then that's just another life I have to work on it again, I guess. That's my own assumption. When I get to the idea, understanding that the light, the focus, holding that light up, that the light is not about me, that it must be out, not inward. My reflection must be inward, not outward. I must be attached to changing here, not there. Paying attention to the things within me that need adjustment, not adjusting other people. When I understand that, then I find freedom. The focus of my attention is no longer placed upon me. It's placed upon service. It's something greater than myself. A child cannot understand this point of view. A child, an adult, in a child's position, I've worked so hard, I deserve the recognition. A child strives for the recognition. I want the rewards. I want that bonus check. I want the title. When we strive for that, we miss the boat. So a child cannot grasp this. We get angry when somebody else gets the accolades for things that I've done. A child cannot grasp that. But a true server would celebrate the accolades, not who received them. That's what a server would do. At least the accolades are there. At least the attention is being brought to the work, not who brings the work, who gets the accolades, but the accolades themselves. A server is the one who, a student of the work would rejoice on that. A child cannot understand that. So, when it comes to paying attention, pay attention to what you pay attention to. I just wanted to end that way. So thank you very much for your attention this evening. We will see you in 2 weeks. Have a good night.